Hello there, fellow model makers, and welcome to the third part of my guide to hand painting model kits. Just a quick recap. I have been working on this Italeri 148 scale Hawker Hurricane Mark 1 kit. A fairly decent kit with no real major issues. So far, I have completed the build and painted the underside of the kit with duck egg green, and one wing has been painted black. I can now turn my attention to the main green and brown camouflage scheme. So the first color I chose was this AK Interactive RAF green. As always, I dilute the paint with some water. Remember, there are no exact ratios to diluting the paint. All I'm looking for is a nicely thinned down layer of paint that self-levels. Also, I keep an eye out for paint pooling in areas and bubbles, both of which we must prevent from happening or they will spoil the paint job. Don't mind the patchiness of the paint at this stage. Subsequent layers will clean up the patchiness. Just make sure you don't keep fiddling with the paint and leave brush strokes as it dries. Just apply a nice smooth layer, as smooth as you can, and leave the paint to dry. Here is another advantage of using very thin paint. I have accidentally applied some paint here on the duck egg green. Now, because the paint is so thin and because I caught this mistake fairly quickly, I simply take a Q-tip moistened with water and wipe the paint away. Easy as that. If the paint was thicker or it had dried, I would have had to go back with the duck egg green to clean this mess up. I use a flat brush for larger surfaces. But since I am not using any masking, I changed to a smaller soft round brush for the edges of the paint scheme. Time for the second coat of paint. I wait about half an hour between coats of paint. This time I start with the smaller brush and paint the edges. Once that is done, I go back to the flat brush and with long white strokes paint on the second coat. And now the third coat. After applying the third coat, I did not like the look of this RAF green from AK. I compared it to some pictures on the internet as well as to the reference booklet that came with the kit. This AK green is, I think, more like the US Air Force olive drab rather than the RAF green. So I decided to switch to this camouflage green from Vallejo Model Air. Right, on with the next coats of paint. For this coat of paint, I am going perpendicular to the earlier direction of the brush strokes. This helps me get a more even and smooth finish. It is especially helpful in leveling out any brush strokes. For the second color in the camouflage scheme, I am using USA Flat Brown. This may not be the exact brown, but I felt it was close enough. As I had mentioned earlier, with all the hobby shops shut down on account of the virus, I was not able to buy the exact paints. Anyway, this I think is close enough. The camouflage pattern prevents me from using the flat brush, so instead I go for a soft round brush. The basics, however, remain the same. Nice thin paint, avoid pooling and bubbles, and do not fiddle with the paint as it dries. Right then, the paint looks pretty decent and smooth. However, I decided to smoothen it out even further by giving it a very light buffing. I am using a 2000 grit sanding sponge. Do not be tempted to use anything more abrasive. We want to polish the surface, but not at the cost of going through the paint. Despite my best efforts, there were some areas where the buffing caused some minor damage. So I go over these areas with some paint for a quick repair job. Similarly, a little cleanup is done on the underside with duck egg green. I now protect the paint job with a couple of coats of gloss varnish. I use this can mainly because it really saves time. Also, the can is not that expensive and one can is good for more than a few kits. Once the gloss varnish is nicely dry, the surface is perfect to apply decals. Right then, fellow model makers. That's about all the time we have in this edition. Next time, I will add some weathering on the kit. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please leave a like and a comment. Do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Till next time, good luck, stay safe, and happy model making.